Have you ever had a really bad nightmare? A dream so horrific that when you woke up, you were relieved to discover that it wasn't real? I'm pretty sure we've all been there. You realize that it was all in your head, and you let out a huge sigh of relief. Now, imagine having those terrible nightmares every night for the rest of your life. Every single one is incredibly vivid, and as time goes on, they only get worse. Your sleep gets disrupted, and your mind starts to change. You become anxious and more irritable. Your body begins to fall apart, and you swear you're starting to feel the pain and trauma from your dreams in real life. That's what happens to those who get marked by the Daedric prince, Vermina. Vermina is the goddess of nightmares and the weaver of dreams. She's relentless and is often considered one of the more malevolent Daedric gods. She rarely ever helps mortals. In fact, most of her time is spent making their lives miserable and afflicting them with horrific nightmares. In today's video, I wanted to go through Vermina's Daedric quest in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I wanted to play through the mission, listen to its dialogue, and then discuss some lore, theories, and themes after all is said and done. The additional information towards the end of this video was gathered via the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages and the Elder Scrolls wiki. Vermina's Daedric quest is called Waking Nightmare. Like many other Daedric quests in the game, the player will have unknowingly stumbled into a prince's playground. By traveling to the coastal city of Dawnstar, you'll have begun to hear the townsfolk complaining about their lack of sleep.
You've come to Dawnstar at a strange time, friend. Seems everyone in the town is having nightmares.
You're wrong to come here, stranger. No rest in Dawnstar. Everyone here is having nightmares. I have miners tripping over their own feet from lack of sleep. I heard there was a priest of Mara who was supposed to be looking into it. We'll see if anything comes of that.
Can't sleep well no matter how much drink I put in me.
Seems like no one is getting a decent night's rest in Dawnstar, stranger. Best buy your steel and move on.
God, I'm so tired.
A handful of people having nightmares is one thing, but the whole city, that's pretty concerning. What's more, a priest of Mara looking into it can never be a good sign. These devout followers are typically called in when the danger level's high and it's deemed to be an unholy threat. Even after hearing about the town's problem, there still isn't a quest that's attached to it. In order for that to pop up, the player must seek out the priest of Mara. The dark elf, Erandur, can be found at the Windpeak Inn.
Need something? The entire town is being plagued by horrible nightmares. They're in serious danger, but I'm afraid there's little I can do about it. In any other circumstance, I'd agree with you. However, these aren't normal dreams. The Daedric Lord Vermina's voracious hunger for memories is responsible for these visions. The nightmares are an echo of her presence as she feeds. I need to return to the source of the problem, to Nightcaller Temple. Perhaps you'd be willing to assist me in that regard. I've already said too much. If anyone overhears what we're saying, it could start a panic. I would simply ask that you trust me and help me end Dawnstar's nightmares. Wonderful. My Lady Mara will be quite pleased. Nightcaller Temple is only a short walk from Dawnstar. Come, we must hurry.
This is what officially initiates the quest, Waking Nightmare. Nightcaller Temple, or the Tower of Dawn as some have coined it, is the old abandoned fort that lies on the mountain just above Dawnstar. Maybe you've even been in there before, as it sort of has this alluring effect to it. There isn't much inside of it though, besides a shrine to Mara, some basic loot, and a couple of old books. Regardless, Erandur seems pretty confident that that's where the source of Vermina's power is coming from. During the brief journey up, Erandur talks a little bit about the tower's lore. It was abandoned even before Nightcaller Temple was, quote, established inside. Essentially, priests of Vermina, or her devotees, moved in there, set up shop, and then they too left the tower deserted. That means that whatever's in there is either undesirable or too dangerous. As Erandur and the Dragonborn get closer to the temple, you'll have to deal with its current guardians. 3 frostbite spiders are lurking by the entrance, but really, they're trivial compared to what's inside. If anything, now's a great time to see how Erandur fights, and what his preferred weapons are. Before heading on into the tower, the priest stops by the door, and the two of you have a little chat.
Before we enter, I must warn you about the dangers that could be lurking within. Years ago, this temple was raided by an orc war party seeking revenge. They were being plagued by nightmares, just like the people of Dawnstar. Knowing they could never defeat the orcs, the priests of Vermina released what they called the Miasma, putting everyone to sleep. I'm concerned that when this place is unsealed, the Miasma will dissipate and they'll awaken, both orcs and priests alike. The Miasma was created by the priests of Vermina for their rituals. It's a gas that places the affected in a deep sleep. Because the rituals would last for months or even years, the Miasma was designed to slow down the aging process. Sadly, yes. The longer an individual is exposed to the Miasma, the more the mind can become damaged. Those who've been under the effect of it for extended periods of time have been known to lose their minds entirely. In some cases, a few never awoke at all.
With the heads up from Erandur, the two of you enter Nightcaller Temple. Again, as it stands, the tower only has one accessible room. It's been ransacked and left to rot. Apart from the shrine, everything else in here won't be able to help you on your journey. However, it is peculiar that you can hear sounds of movement coming from somewhere within the tower. What's more, on the temple's northern wall, there's a gigantic out-of-place tabloid that's unlike anything you've ever seen before. It resembles the deity, which isn't wholly known to you.
Give me just a moment, and I'll have this open.
Just like that, the tabloid transforms and it reveals a secret pathway to the rest of the dungeon. This temple's built similarly to most forts. However, there's this strange purple haze that plagues the keep. No doubt a byproduct of Vermina. Early on into the trek, Erandur pulls you over to a lookout and shows you the source of the prince's influence.
Behold the skull of corruption, the source of Dawnstar's woes. We must reach the inner sanctum and destroy it. Come, there's no time to lose.
As the two of you continue your descent, you begin to see the aforementioned orcish invaders. They appear to be unconscious still. However, upon getting close to them, they rise from their deep sleep and turn aggressive. Their levels are heavily dependent on the players, and their builds are similar to that of bandits. After defeating them, Erandur stops in his tracks and makes an assessment.
Damn it! The priests must have activated this barrier when the Miasma was released. Impossible, actually. I wonder. There may be a way to bypass the barrier, but I must check their library and confirm it can be done. I suppose there's no point in concealing the truth any longer. My knowledge of this temple comes from personal experience. I was a priest of Vermina. When the orcs invaded the temple, I fled. I left my brothers and sisters here to die. I've spent the last few decades living in regret and seeking redemption from Mara. And by her benevolence, I will right my wrongs. I still have my key to the library. Whenever you're ready, let's move on.
It now makes sense as to why Erandur is so knowledgeable on Nightcaller Temple. He knows all about the Miasma, the devotees, and the orcs because he lived through it. While he seems to be on his so-called redemption arc, can you really trust that he's being truthful? After all, the fort's currently in disrepair for everyone, so either way, he needs to reverse the gas and the barricades in order to gain access to the skull. Maybe he wants to release and aid his former cult. Well, following him back to the upper level, some of your worries can be put to rest, as Erandur is more than willing to attack his clan members. As more NPCs begin to rise from their slumber, you start to come across both invaders and devotees. The cult members are all some kind of elf, and they fight with destruction magic. Everyone here is aggressive, and even though the orcs and the player are technically on the same side, they'll still attack you like you're one of the devout. As Erandur put it, the Miasma has warped their minds and changed them for the worse.
Barring any more interruptions, perhaps we can locate the information I need. We're looking for a book of alchemical recipes called the Dreamstride. The tome bears the likeness of Vermina on the cover. It should be here somewhere.
The Dreamstride can be found in the upper level of the library, along the eastern wall. It's one of the few books here that's still intact, and its cover contains the same image that was on the tabloid by the entrance. The book's contents are actually quite interesting. The text starts off by saying that the followers of Vermina are master alchemists. When a concoction of theirs shows up at the black market, it can fetch a price upwards of 10,000 septims. One of their most coveted elixirs, though, is a potion called Vermina's Torpor. Bringing the Dreamstride back to Erandur, he goes further into detail on the mixture.
What is it? Let me take a look. Mara be praised. There is a way past the barrier to the inner sanctum. It involves a recipe for a liquid known as Vermina's Torpor. Yes, the Torpor grants an ability the priests of Vermina called the Dreamstride, using dreams to travel distances in the real world. Quite amazing, yes. Alchemy and the blessings of a divine, distilled down into a ingestible liquid. Sadly, I have yet to see it function in person. As a sworn priest of Mara, the elixir won't work for me. The Torpor will only work for priests of Vermina, or the unaffiliated. All believe there is a laboratory in the East Wing. If we proceed there, we should be able to locate a sample.
The Torpor is certainly a novel concept. To think about all the ways it could be used by historians, scholars, and diplomats. They could learn more about the past, discover buried secrets and treasures, and better their knowledge on lost civilizations, like the Aelids and the Dwemer. Instead, this miracle elixir is kept stashed away by cultists and used for heinous purposes. As the trek through the temple continues, more and more of the Awakened begin to show up. What's more, certain sections of the keep contain scenes of the devout and invaders duking it out. It almost appears as though they've been engaged in combat for years and years, and in a way, they technically have.
Now that they've been dealt with, we need to find the Torpor. It should be in a small bottle, very similar to a potion. I'll begin searching up here. The Torpor should be in a tall bottle with dark liquid. If you find it, bring it to me.
The Torpor is one of the laboratory's only untouched potions. It looks like a bottle of vigorous healing, except what it does is far beyond regenerative.
I'm relieved you discovered a bottle intact. This place looks as though it was ransacked by the orcs. So, I've taken us this far, but you need to guide us the rest of the way. Drink. Dawnstar's fate rests in that tiny bottle. The longer we wait, the more damage Vermina could be doing to those poor people. I understand your hesitation, but I promise you that it works.
Between the player and Erandur, the Torpor's effects are unprecedented. This could be an incredible journey into an all-new realm, or it could be a disastrous nightmare. There's only one way to find out. Slugging back the bottle, the elixir's effects are instant and powerful.
The orcs have breached the inner sanctum, Brother Varen.
We must hold. We can't allow the skull to fall into their hands.
But no more than a handful of us remain, brother.
Then we have no choice. The miasma must be released.
The miasma? But brother...
We have no alternative. It's the will of Vermina. And what about you, Brother Casimir? Are you prepared to serve the will of Vermina? Then it's decided. Brother Casimir, you must activate the barrier and release the miasma. Let nothing stop you.
Brother Thorin, we must remain here and guard this skull with our lives if necessary. Agreed. To the death.
The player has entered the Dreamstride and is taking control of someone named Casimir. You're in the chamber that holds the Skull of Corruption. The relic is working its dark magic, consuming the memories of the Orcish invaders. From here, Casimir is tasked with trekking through some of the previously unexplored areas of the temple. Along the way, you see the scenes that are practically deja vu, so to speak. The devotees and the orcs are tussling in the chambers of the keep. As it stands, there's no way for you to interact with any of them. You don't even have access to weapons, magicka, gear, or your stats. After a short crawl, Casimir makes it to the small room that holds the source of the magical barrier. It contains a chain mechanism, and pulling it releases the miasma. As soon as the job's done, Casimir's journey ends and the Dragonborn returns to the world of the Awakened. You're still on the other side of the barrier, and it's seemingly powered by a common soul gem. Fortunately, interacting with the stone is all it takes, and pocketing the gem, the force field dissipates.
It worked. Mara be praised. You vanished after drinking the torpor and materialized on the other side. I've never seen anything quite like it. How I envy you. I can only imagine the excitement of seeing history through the eyes of another. Sadly, I am resigned to just reading of its wonders through my research of the skull. Indeed, my reverence for Vermina's machinations should not take precedence over our mission. My apologies. The inner sanctum lies ahead. We must reach the skull and put an end to Dawnstar's troubles. Lead on, my friend.
Luckily for the player, you now know the exact route back to the skull, as you just run through it as Casimir. Unfortunately, the trip's not without its trials and tribulations. The remainder of the NPCs are now awake, and they're now your problem to deal with. While most of the devout will easily fall to destruction magic, the orcs are another thing entirely. Some of them are fairly tanky, and wielding those two-handed weapons, their attacks can really pack a punch. Eventually, the Dragonborn and Erandur make it to the last room of Nightcaller Temple, the shrine that holds the Skull of Corruption. Just as you approach the unholy relic, two familiar faces lunge out of the darkness.
Wait. There, Thoric, you're alive. No thanks to you, Casimir. I no longer use that name. I'm Erandur, priest of Mara. You're a traitor. You left us to die and then ran before the miasma took you.
No, I was scared. I wasn't ready to sleep.
Enough of your lies. I can't allow you to destroy the skull, priest of Mara.
Then you leave me no choice.
Varen and Thoric, the two named NPCs from the Dreamstride, are seemingly the final bosses for this quest. Varen is a Dark Elf mage. He's placed 1.25 level higher than the player with a minimum level of 10. Thoric's stats and class are the same, the only difference is that he's a Nord. That means if you're a mage or have specific enchantments on your weapons, you have to be careful, as one devotee is resistant to the element that could work on the other. So, shock damage, health drain, poisons, anything that's not frost or fire will work best here. Shock will directly affect their magicka, and since they're both mages, that could be a great combat tactic. Otherwise, I found it easiest to close the distance with both men and force them into melee combat. Since Erandur is an essential follower, it's also beneficial to let him take the brunt of the aggro. These devout followers can be challenging, but with the right approach, they fall just like all the others.
I knew Varen and Thoric. They were my friends. Is this punishment for my past? Is it Mara's will to torment me so? Yes, you're right. If they needed to die so that Dawnstar could live, then it was worth the price. It's time. The skull must be destroyed.
If you'll stand back, I'll perform the ritual granted to me by Lady Mara.
First.
It's finally time to end Dawnstar's nightmares. Approaching the skull, Erandur begins to perform a deconsecration ritual.
I call upon you, Lady Mara. The skull hungers. It yearns for memories and leaves nightmares in its wake. Grant me the power to break through this barrier and to send the skull to the depths of oblivion.
He's deceiving you. When the ritual's complete, the skull will be free, and then Erandur will turn on you. Quickly, kill him now. Kill him and claim the skull for your own. Vermina commands you.
At the moment, Erandur is dispelling the barrier, and there's only a couple of seconds for rational thinking. Like a few of the other Daedric quests, the player has a choice to make. Allow Erandur to destroy the skull, believe Vermina and slay the traitor, or, by your own malicious accord, regardless of the priest's alignment, slay Erandur anyway. I'll explore both options, but first, I decided to let the priest carry out his blessing. With the barrier down, the skull disappears. Whether it's destroyed or just cast out of this realm is unknown, but it no longer has a hold over Dawnstar.
Yes, the skull has been destroyed, and Dawnstar is safe. I'd constructed a meager shrine to Mara in the antechamber where we entered. My intention was to spend the rest of my years here, burying the past and praying for forgiveness. But instead, I wish to offer my services to you. If you ever wish to journey with me, I'll be here. There's no need to thank me. What you did was for the people of Dawnstar. If anyone should be thanked, it should be you.
This string of events completes the quest. Erandur can now be used as a follower, and I think it's safe to say that he's already proved himself in combat. With this ending, the followers of Vermina are no more, the Orcish invaders are dead, Erandur lives out the rest of his life, and Nightcaller Temple is at ease. The Skull of Corruption, however, is gone. That means that the player will never get to know the extent of its power and what the totem was truly capable of. So, reverting back, this time the player can choose Vermina's temptations and attack Erandur. The priest is placed at 1.5 levels higher than the player. Since you're already familiar with his fighting style, you can use his weaknesses and strengths to your advantage. Stay away from fire, use shock, and close at the distance. With Erandur dead, the player can approach the now accessible Skull of Corruption and take it as your prize. From here, Waking Nightmare comes to an end again. Unfortunately, the goddess Vermina has nothing more to say to the player. There's no closing dialogue, nor are there any remarks regarding your actions. As for the skull, it's a unique staff, and it deals 20 points of damage with each cast. However, where it really shines is its bonus power. When used on sleeping NPCs, the act is called Dream Stealing. It doesn't harm them, it collects their dreams, and it gains a temporary buff. The damage dealt towards awakened NPCs jumps from 20 points to 50. Furthermore, Dream Stealing isn't considered a crime, so that gives the staff a little more ease of use. With Waking Nightmare at an end, let's talk a little bit about it. For starters, I really enjoyed this quest. I thought the setup, rising action, and climax were really well done. The player hears from Dawnstar's residents that they've been having constant nightmares. This plants the seed of interest and curiosity in the player's head. A priest of Mara is in town to investigate, and the Dragonborn lends a hand. Erandur does a pretty good job at hooking you in, as he says that the people of Dawnstar are in grave danger, and if you don't act fast, they're all doomed. You soon learn that the culprit behind all of this is Vermina, the Daedric Prince of Nightmares. As you venture through Nightcaller Temple, you discover more about the devotees, the orcs, the magic that's at work, and Erandur's true origins. Your crawl through the keep involves specific goal points and reaching the next step of the investigation, all while battling through groups of barbarians and mages. Then lastly, there are a couple of notable points within the story where everything is just really well done. The Dreamstride was a novel experience. It sort of reminded me of reading the elderscrolls during the main quest. You get glimpses of the past and are able to unlock lost and hidden knowledge. The differences are pretty stark though, as in the Dreamstride, you're actually living through someone else's memories. It also has an effect on the user's real-world location and well-being. Meanwhile, the elderscroll just shows you snippets of the past, present, or future, and it can only be used for gaining knowledge. Moving on, the player's fights with Thoric and Varen manage to serve as closure for Erandur. Obviously, the priest rejects his past ways and now looks down upon the cult. However, he was still close with some of its members, and it couldn't have been easy for him to strike them down. He faced the ghosts of his pasts, and while we don't know Erandur all that well, it was neat to see the integral parts of his story. Then lastly, the cream of the crop, there's deciding on Erandur's fate as well as the skulls. This to me serves as the ultimate climax for the quest. In the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty major decision. The skull is a powerful artifact, and it's a weapon that can take its place in almost any character's arsenal. Its abilities are unique, and it doesn't operate using elemental, poisonous, or health-damaging properties. Meanwhile, Erandur's come a long way on his journey. From devotee to runaway cultist to priest of Mara, all the way to warrior, he's truly trying to make amends for his actions. While there may have been some doubt towards his honesty in the beginning, I think he soon makes it clear whose side he's really on. He slays all of his former cult members and even takes out his former friends. To me, when Vermina was trying to fill the player's head with doubts and lies, it was kind of easy to see through it, as Erandur had already made it this far. He clearly wasn't a follower of hers anymore, and while he maybe could have taken the staff for himself, it didn't really line up with his MO, as he had already made an enemy out of the Daedric Prince. The odds were never 0 to 100, but I put them at 25 to 75 in favor of him being honest, and I felt pretty confident. That's why I added in the third rationale for killing him, taking the skull out of your own malicious intent, because that really is an option. By killing him, it doesn't mean that you're siding with Vermina. It just means that you want to use the skull for your own intents and purposes. Now, switching gears a bit, a small detail I wanted to call out for being executed both poorly and well was the miasma's effects. Erandur mentioned that the longer someone is under its control, the more warped and twisted their minds get. To me, this played perfectly into the Orcish invaders' aggression. You'd think that they'd be on the same side as the player, as both of you are trying to destroy the skull. However, the orcs wake up dazed, confused, and altered. Who knows what's changed with their psyche, but it's not surprising that they're not only unwilling to help the player, but want to attack you as well. Plus, for all we know, maybe some of them recognize Erandur as Casimir and associate the both of you with the devout. Another good callout is that Erandur mentions that some of those affected by the miasma won't wake up at all. Other than the fact that there was a small war raging in this keep, that could explain some of the already dead NPCs. Now, the part that's not as well executed, in my opinion, are the devotees. They all seem unchanged and relatively sound of mind. While it's true we have no clue how long ago this battle started, from the way Erandur describes everything, it had to have been decades ago. If the orcs were possibly altered, which granted is unconfirmed, surely the miasma would have had the same effect on the devotees, right? Maybe some of them could have had a change of mind with regards to their allegiances. Maybe some are left scarred and traumatized, and then maybe a select few might continue with their mission. Some potential plot armor for that is that since they're followers of Vermina, they were granted with some kind of immunity to the miasma's damaging effects. Or maybe the brain damage was exactly what they were looking for, and it only made them even more devout followers? Honestly, it's hard to say how much of an effect the miasma actually has on people and what it's supposed to do other than knock them out and leave them in a deep sleep. My best guess is that that was Bethesda's way of explaining why the orcs were hostile towards the player and Erandur. Now, the last things I wanted to circle back to were the Dreamstride and the Torpor. The actual book itself offers a few more details on the condition and the state of reality. First and foremost, it was already evident through playing as Casimir, but in the Dreamstride, you have the same mannerisms, speech patterns, and knowledge as the Dreamer. To the awakened world, those who have drunk the Torpor end up vanishing into thin air, completely gone in a flash. It's not known whether you're actually entering the consciousness of the Dreamer, or if the Dreamstride is just some twisted reality created by Vermina. Now, something I know that wasn't really touched upon is the downside of the Torpor's effects. If the player, or in this case, the Dreamer, dies within the Dreamstride, the subject also dies. If the Dreamer comes to harm within the Dreamstride, so does the subject. Depending on how far back the Dreamer's memories go, you could end up in a part of Tamriel that was safe in a previous era, but now it's fallen into disarray, misfortune, and danger. Essentially, when you think about it, if the Dragonborn entered the Dreamstride as some of the other NPCs in the temple, they likely would have died, or they would have come out of there greatly harmed. Furthermore, what would have happened if, say, the player hopped into the consciousness of an Orcish invader, Varen, Thoric, or really anyone that suffered the effects of the miasma? Since the subject more or less suffers the same fate as the Dreamer, would the Dragonborn have been knocked out by the gas's effects? In all likeliness, they probably would have woken up with the rest of the Awakened, but would their psyche have been damaged? Would they have suffered the same sort of mental effects that, say, the Orcs suffered? Honestly, who knows, as it's uncharted territory, but I find it very interesting to think about. Then lastly, there's the Torpor itself. What an incredible creation. It can not only be used to get through previously blocked off areas, but also to relive history. You could see the world as it was in the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st eras, and heck, maybe even the Merethic and Dawn eras. There'd be no more guessing at the correct history. Theories and ideas could become concrete. You could discover the secrets of the Aliens. You could see what happened to the Dwemer, and you can learn more about their advanced society. You could glimpse at the evolution of the Falmer and try to learn their motivations. Any site, building, or area that's been sealed off can be gotten into via the Dreamstride. Honestly, the possibilities are endless, and the Torpor seems like a scientific breakthrough in the universe of the elderscrolls. The main issue, though, is that really, no one knows how it works. Like the book says, maybe the Dreamstride is a construct of Vermina's, and if she doesn't like the way you're using it, maybe she sets you up for death, or worse. While the Dragonborn's Dreamstride was convenient and they got placed in Casimir, who knows how reliable the Torpor's placement really is? Is the Dreamstride process random? Is it fixed to a location or your surroundings? Does the dreamer have to still be alive? And what determines the moment you get sent to? Is it motive-based, or again, is Vermina the one who determines where you go and who you get sent into? How does one even make the Torpor? Do you have to be a follower of Vermina, or can any novice alchemist brew the elixir? There are so many uncertainties, and with very little documented cases of dreamstriding, the risks may not be worth the rewards. However, with all of that being said, here's what we do know. The Torpor worked on the Dragonborn, someone who isn't affiliated with the Aedra or the Daedra. It sent the player into Erandur's memories, which took place at this very same location. That means it definitely works on someone who's alive, nearby, and has ties to the space. It did bring the Dragonborn to a stretch of time/moment that was convenient to their quest. As soon as the player reached their desired destination, the Torpor's effects wore off. As far as we can tell, Vermina didn't have any influence over the player's dreamstriding experience. As for the elixir itself, we know that it's created by mixing alchemy with dark magic. Who knows what sacrifices need to be made in order to receive Vermina's blessing for the Torpor. Furthermore, if Vermina played a role in the Torpor's creation, that means that whoever makes it likely has to be a worshipper, and the elixir needs her stamp of approval. In turn, brewing the Torpor might not work if your intentions aren't legitimate in the eyes of the Daedric Prince. Essentially, if the Torpor was going to be used for science, it would prove to be very difficult. You'd have to secure multiple samples of the Torpor, which as we know is very rare as it is. Whoever drinks it would have to be unaffiliated with the Aedra. If the process is as simple as it sounds, you then have to come up with a task, drink the concoction in your place of interest with your person of interest nearby, and see how that goes. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. If you're lucky, you don't die. That's why it would be incredibly difficult to master the use of the Torpor. You need an ample supply of the potions and an ample supply of subjects and dreamers to try it on. Maybe it's something that's best left for the cultists to work with, or perhaps it's best left out of history entirely. It's an incredibly useful tool, but it comes with its own slew of dangers and problems. I'd love to know your thoughts on this quest down below, and until next time, keep on adventuring.